Alrighty then, the pattern's been approved and I've started cutting the leather. Now, when I make a pattern, I don't always pay attention to whether or not it's right hand or left hand, but basically just the shape of it. But after the pattern was approved, I traced it onto another piece of construction paper so I can cut this little bit out, because that's going to be a pattern for my stitch line. Fits right in that corner there. Now I've started cutting the leather, and what I've used is I use my utility knife, which I do strop, to rough cut the hunk of leather out, and then using a straight edge and my little pointy knife, I cut around all the other curves and stuff. Now, like in this corner here, what I'll do, instead of cutting into a corner, is I'll take my punch, make sure it lines up with both sides of the leather, and I'll just punch a hole there. Should have it. Oh, not quite. Let me whack it another time. There we go. I'll punch a hole down there in the corner. Now I've already cut most of this off, but using my knife, actually it's easier if I stand up to do this, because I can get over top of it. The way I do it is I hold it in my hand and I wrap my whole hand around it and I guide it with my finger. I'll bring it right to the edge of that little hole. Very carefully so I don't overcut. And that has it there. For the straight part, actually I prefer to do it this way. I'll just leave my straight edge on it, line it up carefully, and making sure the blade is perpendicular with the surface of the leather. I'll go ahead and I'll cut along that. Now this does have a cork backing on it that helps to keep it from sliding around. Okay, I just need to trim in that little corner there a little bit. There we go. To cut this end, pardon my reach, I'll just use my strap cutter. I trace this on there to show where that end is going. I could cut it with the knife, but I got one of these, so I'm going to go ahead and use it. Actually, I've got two. I've got this one and a larger one, because sometimes you want a bigger belt. And there you go. Gotta do some cleanup on it. And I'm going to go ahead and bevel my edges too. Now let's see. I'm going to lay my little piece on there. Now, because this is black, I have no qualms about drawing on it, because once I dye it, you won't see my ink lines. Well, I'm not going to go drawing pictures in the middle of it anyway, so That's a thing. This is going to be my stitch line. A little bit later I'm going to go over that with my scratch awl. But for right now, all I'm doing is putting it in place to show where to bevel my edges. Why is that, you may ask? Well, I will show you. Okay, that looks good. Because I don't want to bevel beyond that end there. I'm going to do that on the inside too. This is the action-packed drawing lines on a piece of leather sequence. That's all I really need. I made these marks here because I don't want to bevel beyond that point, because that's going to be glued together like that, and if I bevel beyond that point there will be a gap through here, and that does not make for a good looking edge. I got my edge beveler and I keep that stropped too. And also, let me get my dividers. Since I know that my stitch line is going to be just a hair over 1/8 of an inch, I also want to mark it here to stop my beveling before I get into where it's going to be glued together at the top. Oh, that's not very good. Well, for the same reason, but you can't really tell on this one. And I want to bevel both the inside and the outside edges, because I want it to be pretty. And it takes a little extra effort to do the beveling and all the extra edge work, but I think it's worth it because the final product comes out looking a lot better. It's the details. And if you want something looking good, or you want to give your leather work a little bit something extra, then you need to work on giving it all those extra little details. Now this edge is going to get glued together and sanded, so I want to be careful also. Let me get my pen to not bevel it when I bevel this part, which I'm going to do right now, to not bevel it beyond this point. I can come back and redo that. But when you're doing your beveling, you gotta think of stuff like that. Now I'm beveling both sides of the snap because it's gonna stand out a little ways anyway, or the strap here. Let me mark it on the inside. Then after I get all this stuff beveled, I'm going to go ahead and get some dye on this thing. I just remembered something. I need to skive this down a little bit because I know that this leather is thick and I'll have troubles setting my snaps. So yeah, I keep my skiver sharp too. Don't have to do a lot. Just a bit. I want to make sure it's smooth too. Like I said, it's the little details that add up. Bevel that. And this part here. Okay, I am going to finish up with my beveling and my skiving and all that fun stuff. And I'll get some dye on this. Basically, I'm just going to dye it black. And well, we'll see y'all next time.